Welcome everyone, Marcelo is my name. I'm the niche fragrance collector. I love all things niche perfumery. If you love perfume, if you love understanding more about niche perfumery, creators, the fragrance themselves, I invite you to subscribe and join me on this journey. Today I'm going to be talking about boozy fragrances. The irony to all of this though is I don't drink. And you may think to yourself, how can I trust a man who doesn't drink to put forward any level of recommendation when it comes to a nice boozy fragrance? I'll tell you why. Years ago I used to have a event management business and we did really big scale events here in Melbourne. Australian Open, the big tennis tournament, and also Melbourne Cup, the horse racing. The one thing about these massive large scale events is like it's a marathon. In particular the Australian Open, it's a 2-week event, 14 days. It's a marathon, however, you're running it like the 100-meter sprint. You are constantly going. There's no sleeping, there's no weekends, it's just get it done. Now, the event hadn't quite opened yet. We were working with a really large client who was probably the largest wine manufacturer here in the country. On this particular day, the client was doing an inspection at this marquee that the builders had finished building. All the furnishing was in. There were these beautiful wine barrels that had been used. I think it was French oak, and they were beautifully stained. I don't know whether it was a Merlot or Cabernet or it was a red wine. Now, one thing that is consistent with Melbourne around January is that it is scorching hot. And on this day, there was no difference to that. It was probably about 40+ degrees. And the AC in this marquee hadn't been switched on yet. I had half an hour before the client came, so I thought I'm just gonna lie down, have a little rest, because I was just absolutely exhausted, and I fell asleep like that. And I remember waking up to the most divine, deep, rich, woody, fruity scent that I'd ever smelled. I've smelled wine in a glass before, but this was something else. And I think it was a combination of the extreme heat, that rich woodiness from the actual barrels themselves, mixed in with the stain or what was already in the wood when it comes to the wine. I remember putting my head over this barrel and just inhaling this scent. It was something that I'd never experienced before. Since then, I realized that some beautiful alcoholic beverages have a very unique, just rich, divine scent. And what I'd like to do today is go from, I guess, the more lighter field, so gins and absinthe, and go into the much deeper, and you can see from the color of the liquid, rum, deep, spicy scents. So I'd like to start with this one here. This is AFROPOLIS. It's a new brand that I've discovered based in Ireland. I've got a few gin fragrances in my collection. What I love what they've done here. On opening, you're getting that divine gin-like quality to it. So it does have a gin accord or a gin note in there, but it also uses juniper berries and it also uses citrus. So it combines that classic, bright, aromatic, almost botanical scent from the gin in that vibrant opening. It's invigorating, it's a happy scent. It's designed for summer, for spring. The difference is that it uses now blonde woods in the base, and I find that the longevity on this fragrance is really spectacular. I find that as the fragrance then migrates and begins to dry down, I'm getting a wonderful, almost floral-like quality to it. Now, according to the notes, there are no florals here, but on skin, I'm getting some kind of, and when I say floral, it's almost like a white floral. It's not a rose, it's not a distinct note, but again, it's not in the notes, okay? So I'm either imagining it or it might be there, but it wasn't listed. I just know that the longevity on this is fantastic. The sillage on this fragrance is moderate, has beautiful sillage, and I do find that the projection on this is also moderate. It actually pushes out really nicely. As a summer, as a spring, as a bright day kind of fragrance, AFROPOLIS is beautiful. One thing that about this particular brand here, Rhodes, is that it has 3 different collections. This is part of the Africa collection, and the reason why I wanted to, I guess, point that out is that it goes against, in my mind, if I think of Africa, I do think of very resinous sort of spices, darker woods kind of fragrances, whereas the whole collection within that Africa lineup are all very bright, aromatic, vibrant, alive, almost, I think, like sunshine itself. So I guess maybe the way that they've interpreted Africa as a place of color and light and sunshine. So this fragrance does it really, really well. Moving across to another alcoholic beverage. This is absinthe. and the brand is ANKA Kush. This particular fragrance here is called Absinthe Minded. Perfumer, his name is Ali. He's a jokester. He's actually an Aussie. He's a local Melbourne boy. And he likes to, he comes across as a bit of a prankster, likes to play jokes. One thing about this fragrance, and this actually falls in line with his character, is that he purposely made this fragrance, the opening of it, like a slap in the face. If you love the absinthe note, so if you like that licorice component, that sweet fennel, the anise, then this is heaven for you. But if you're not so sure, it's like you're getting hit with an actual fennel. It's vibrant, it is strong, it is herbal, it is very aromatic, it's in your face. I asked him the question, I had an opportunity to film with Ali, and I said, why did you make this so strong? Why did you do it to come out of the gate so vibrant? He goes, I did it to fool the wearer. One thing that's impressive about this fragrance is that in 2020, he was part of the finalists of the Art and Olfaction Awards. Watch the video and you'll see how long it took him to create this fragrance. As a fragrance that is invigorating, that is vibrant, that is wonderful summer or spring kind of fragrance, absinthe minded, there is nothing like it. I have a few absinthe fragrances in my collection, and I'm gonna, so block your ears, ladies and gentlemen, over here. This is my perfume bar is right there. This is the best. When it comes to an absinthe fragrance, absinthe minded is amazing. As I said, it starts off very strong, very vibrant, very powerful with that fennel note on that opening. It does dry down, but it never goes away. It comes down to woods, but that vibrancy of that fennel, that sweet fennel, stays within the fragrance. Longevity on this, 7+ hours, no problems at all. I also find that the sillage of this goes into the moderate, and projection is also in the moderate category, moving around you without any problems at all. Glorious, glorious. So moving across to a different style now, champagne. And this is quite unusual because I remember when I first encountered this, I thought, champagne, how would that work in a fragrance? This is Dom Rosa. The brand is called Liquid Imaginaires, a French brand. David Frossard, for those who are familiar with this great man, and I'm going to talk about the next fragrance that he is. He's a co-owner within Liquid Imaginaires. This is probably their best seller in that lineup that they have. What I love about this, it's very distinct. It opens with this wonderful, bubbly, invigorating champagne note, but with a slight pear note that comes across it. It's sweet, but the pear, it almost like the pear doesn't reveal itself. If I don't tell you there's a pear note in there, what you're picking up is this wonderful, very realistic champagne opening to the fragrance, almost to the point that you can taste it. It's sparkling, it's vibrant, it is sophisticated. I also love that on the opening, you're getting a very slight hint of this rose. It is a very light May of Rose scent profile that it has to it, but never losing the champagne sparkling component of the fragrance. If you are going out on a date, if you are meeting friends, this is pure magic. For a formal event, so if you were going to a wedding, a formal dinner, Dom Rosa is the fragrance that I would recommend you wear. This works amazing on a man, this works amazing on a woman. The fragrance is wonderfully romantic. It definitely is a festive kind of a smell. And it's funny because if you were to pour champagne on your skin, even though you know it's champagne, I'm gonna say it won't smell the same. Whereas this, it's almost like if champagne could smell of something, it would smell of Dom Rosa. On me, this fragrance goes for 4 to 5 hours, and I find that the projection goes from moderate to high. It actually does have a nice push. I find that the sillage is a comfortable moderate. People are detecting this fragrance as I'm moving through. Now, one thing that I've heard, which I don't have a problem with, by the way, is that it does only go for 4 to 5 hours. I find that for me, this is how I like wearing it. If I were to go to a formal event, then this is the fragrance that I would put on as essentially as I leave the house or get out of the car, depending how far the drive is. This is something that you want on that opening. Because at a formal event, there's going to be, as you get deeper into the event, there's going to be other smells, whether it's food or whether it's, if you're at a bar, other smells that are coming through there. So this is a great fragrance to introduce you to that event. As the event then goes on, it doesn't really matter because there's so many other smells that are competing with you anyway. Sometimes people in those scenarios attempt to do, this is Marcelo's advice. Sometimes people are tempted to do a beast mode kind of fragrance. So something that has really strong, long-lasting power that'll take you to the end of the night. I don't personally like to do that, only because that fragrance is going to be, it's almost like a constant boo all the way through, 8 hours of boo. And I think that sometimes that can become a little bit monotonous. Whereas a fragrance like this, it actually goes, this beautiful harmonic sort of angelic sound as people meet you on that opening and they go, my gosh, you smell amazing. Having said that though, being that it is one of their best sellers, Liquid Imaginaires have just released 10th anniversary to this fragrance, and it's the Dom Rosa Millésime version. I haven't smelled it, so I can't tell you. I've only read these comments. They have amped up some of these notes. The Millésime version has a lot more, I guess, staying power. Again, I go back. I love using this. This is a fragrance that I love to go out with. Festive, romantic, really, really beautiful. Allora, boom, boom. So I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, the reason why I love niche perfumery is it's more than just beautiful smell. So beautiful smells is the automatic, I guess, what you get in being here. But it's all these backstories that then begin to take shape and give a new angle. It's a new perspective on these particular fragrances. One of them is this one here. This was my first boozy fragrance that I encountered. For me, this was an eye-opener. As I mentioned, if I look at that moment in time where I basked in the glory of this wine barrel that had been steeped in this red wine, all that combination of notes, and I didn't realize what I was smelling. I realized that it was woody, it was ambery, but with fruit notes. I mean, I realize that now. I just remember that it was so clear in my mind that the smell was divine. So when I came across this is 1270. It's by a French house called FRAPIN. Now, some people may know FRAPIN because they've been a cognac maker since 1270. I'll say it again, 1270. They've been making cognac to the point that they even have a royal crest on their bottle. If you look at their bottle, it's a beautiful shaped cognac glass, and they're basically commemorating or celebrating their history. This is a family-owned business since 1270, and it was in 2009 that one of the members of the family, as they were doing testing on the new batch of their cognac, was getting tired of drinking and decided to put the cognac on her skin to smell the bouquet of it. As she put it on her hand, she realized that, hang on a second, this could be a perfume. And that then started a whole new sort of venture for them in which they started to create fragrances. Now, I mentioned earlier that David Frossard is the creative, one of the creative geniuses behind Liquid Imaginaires. He was the one that actually came to the FRAPIN family and said, let me take over. At the end of the day, they were cognac makers, not necessarily perfumers. And so they didn't know how to execute that and take it to market. David Frossard came along, saw what was being created, saw an opportunity, and became the creative director for this brand. The rest, as they say, is history. FRAPIN is an awesome French perfume house with an incredible collection. But this is their first one, 1270. And this is my first one when it comes to this boozy lineup. This is worthy of being sprayed. Glorious. Glorious. What I love about this particular fragrance is it starts with this beautiful candied orange, chocolate sort of vibe on the opening. Dried fruits begin to emerge. Then as it dries down, there is this vanilla honey tone to it, but there is a woodiness in there too. It actually, if anything, reminds me of that oak wood barrel. It's a fragrance that is very sensual, awesome as a date fragrance. I love to wear this even just to relax. So there's a terminology, Netflix and chill. I know all the young people, that means something else. For us old boys, it means just, yeah, Netflix and chill. So sit on the couch watching Netflix, enjoying a good show. Now, I love wearing this as my Netflix and chill, old school style, because it has this, and especially on a cool day, you know, the house is warm, maybe a little blanket, watching, I sound like an old granny. But I do love wearing this fragrance you know, the warmth from it, the fruits, the honey, the vanilla, the slight woods. It is intoxicating. As a going out fragrance, magic. As a date fragrance, just divine. Man or woman, I've actually shared this with a number of people. No matter who I spray, no exaggeration, no matter who I spray, they absolutely love this fragrance. I find that the longevity on this particular fragrance is between 4 to 5 hours. The sillage on this is moderate to high, so it does have a wonderful trail, and I also find that the projection on this is very pronounced. I would put it into a moderate to high. When I'm wearing it, it's very evident. People around me are smelling, and I think it's because also the woody, ambery notes that are in there, the fruit notes, the moment my skin begins to warm up, it becomes very present. So if this is Netflix and chill, old school style, you're actually watching Netflix, then this is Netflix and chill in the way that the term is used nowadays. It's one of those fragrances that no matter who wears it, whether it's a man or a woman, it's stating what it's doing, which is trying to seduce you. Some people have actually said that this is a secret weapon when they go out on a date, or if they're just going out on the town looking for a date, that this is their secret weapon that they like to use because it does emanate a sense of confidence. There's something here that is super alluring, and it's almost like think of it like a hook. It just seems to like, you know, an imaginary sort of olfactory hook that sort of grabs people and brings you closer. No matter who I spray this on, I have my nephew who's probably 19. This is his fragrance of choice. So when he comes to work in the office, I have, as I mentioned, a fragrance bar. This is the first one he comes to, and this is to do work, but he loves the scent profile of this particular fragrance. When this perfume opens, has the most amazing honeyed whiskey sort of booziness that sort of evolves out of it. As it then migrates, it goes into this wonderful vanilla. There is a slight rose that begins to take shape. There are woods. The longevity on this is spectacular. You're getting 8+ hours, but the truth is, I spray this in the day, I wake up the next morning, I can smell BARAONDA on my skin still. The sillage of this, moderate to high, beautiful trail, and the push, the projection is exactly the same, moderate to high. There is a presence when you're wearing BARAONDA. This is an Alessandro Gualtieri fragrance for those who are familiar with Alessandro. He's a very avant-garde perfumer. Some of his creations can be a little bit intimidating from an olfactory point of view. If you're new to Alessandro, I would recommend you commence right here. If you want to explore a perfumer who is very creative, is driven by his passion, not necessarily by what the market is saying is cool right now, then I would recommend to you his creations, but start here. This, you'll fall in love very easily. If you're new to niche, because that's the other thing too, sometimes coming in from designers, there is a scent profile that designers have. If you start in some of these other places, you might be like, if you start here, you'd be like, what is going on? Someone's trying to poison me. It's such a blast of this fennel note. You're thinking this is insanity. I go back. This is glorious. So just for those who want to explore something very unique and amazing, I'd strongly recommend to you Absinthe Minded. But if you're new to niche, start here. You'll fall in love in a second. I want to move across to more rum style fragrance, and this was hard for me. I do have a number of rum fragrances in my collection, or where they use that rum note. There's one, I had it here and I put it behind me, sorry. Does use a beautiful rum note on the opening. It blends it with a passion fruit note. That passion fruit does give it a slight acidic touch to it. On opening, it's a wonderful boozy fragrance, divine. The booziness does come down, moves across into patchoulis and things like that, and that's why I put it on the shelf. But have a look at the video I created on this. I do love Honey Ayo. I think it's awesome. But I wanted to stay with fragrances that really played on that booziness component of it and essentially stayed all the way through. Now, what I've discovered with rum, and in particular these two here, is that rum can be used in different ways. Meaning that sometimes it can be very rich, very molasses, very spicy, or uses spicy notes, or it could be a little bit lighter. And I purposely chose these two, which are at opposite ends of the scale. The first one. This is an awesome house, French, Pierre. I had the opportunity of actually going, it's glorious by the way, oh my gosh, hang on a second. I've been wearing this fragrance, so I had the opportunity of being in Paris. I went to the Pierre boutique, one thing that he does, if you get a chance, go into these boutiques, he does things very differently. I mean, the moment you walk in, you instantly get this, I don't know, you get this vibe. Anyway, I'm going to do a video on the boutiques itself because I was so impressed the way this whole place looked. This is a new release for Pierre. It's called TONKA BODYKON. For me, on first spray, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see what this is doing. I'm getting the elements of that beautiful rum. The difference is that I define this more brandy-like. So it has an opening of apple with that rum, but it has this brandy apple kind of component to it. Tonka is a vanillic toned woody note. So you're getting this wonderful ambery vanilla vibe to it. And interestingly, it has both honey and pistachio. For me, these two notes gives us a wonderful sweetness, but also that pistachio gives it a slight nutty bitterness to it. I find that on skin, this fragrance evolves so much. On that opening, you're getting that wonderful brandy apple component to it. As the fragrance evolves, it does go into an ambery vanillic place, but again, and the reason why it's here, that brandy or that rum-like quality never loses. It always stays within the life of the fragrance. This is very sensual, very close to you. I found that the projection on this is moderate to low. So it does start off fairly confident, moderate. It does come into me though. The sillage on this, I find that it goes into a low. However, this is a fragrance that seems to sit on my skin for 6+ hours. I find that this is a very intimate, sensual fragrance. If you're going on a date with someone that you know, it may end well, then this would be an extremely amazing fragrance for, I guess, intimate moments. The name also gives it away. It's a bodycon, mean, in the way I interpret it, is body contouring, or it stays close to you. It's a fragrance that becomes a part of you, but it doesn't become, so sometimes I find some fragrances almost blend in with me. It's almost like, do I smell this good? No, no. When I smell this, I am detecting a very distinct vanilla, ambery, honeyed, rum-like or brandy-like fragrance. So it never loses its perfume properties, but it's very close to me. I had an opportunity to also wear it in Paris. The difference there is that I was layered. A shirt, a jumper, jacket, scarf. The fragrance was still, I could still feel it on me. Lately, it's been very warm here. It's almost like Melbourne has had a spring renaissance again. We should be in autumn or fall. I've been wearing this and it is magic. TONKA BODYKON, glorious. Now if you want something that really, so it's almost like the evil twin of something like this. You feel like it's got up to no good. Think of the speakeasies of the old days. Le Jus en Fer. This is a JOVOY fragrance. I also discovered this when I was in Paris. I love, oof, boom, baby. You know what I found? So I was in the JOVOY store also in Paris, and under recommendation, I was encouraged to check out this fragrance. I sprayed it on card. I'm like, okay, spicy, interesting, okay. The magic is on skin, I'm telling you now, everybody. So, Le Jus en Fer, which means, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm going to put it here, means game on, or let the games begin, something to that effect. This is, boom, this is so much deeper, as I mentioned before, where this is apple, brandy, light, body contouring, just very sensual and sexy on you. This is trouble. This is now bold and spicy, and what's your problem? What do you want from me? This would be a great fragrance to go out with. This is now, it's definitely, so not necessarily beast mode, but definitely much more confident, a lot more. So if it's a cold day, if it's like if you're gonna be outdoors, Le Jus en Fer is something that you will radiate a certain level of confidence. There's also tobacco in here. So you have things like patchouli, you have things like tobacco. There are wood notes in here. It's quite a pronounced, distinct, boozy kind of fragrance. Rum is in the heart, so you're not getting that on the opening. I find that the longevity on this, 8+ hours, you're now taking this to the next day. I also find that the projection on this is phenomenal. Moderate to high, The sillage is also moderate to high, has great trail. Again, when you wear this, people will know that you're wearing it. Glorious, absolutely glorious. Such a beautiful fragrance. Again, I don't recommend, don't spray it on card. It's funny, it's so different on card. Don't spray it on card. I don't know why. This is something that needs to be worn. So there you have it. 7 boozy fragrances from a guy who doesn't drink, but loves perfumery and loves very unique scents. Starting off very light all the way to this powerhouse where everybody will know that you're in the house. What are your favorite boozy fragrances? I would love to know. Make sure you put that in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. I would love to see you as part of the NFC family. Thanks everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you guys all on the next episode.